Ever feel like your emotions are running the show? Welcome to the Power of Emotional Intelligence podcast. I am Marc Monteil, citizen of the world, founder of Intemotionnelle, and I'm here to help you build stronger connections, deepen self-awareness, and grow your resilience in today's ever-changing world. In each episode, we explore real-life insights, practical strategies, and inspiring stories to help you tap into the full potential of emotional intelligence. Whether you are aiming to excel at work, strengthen your relationships, or enrich your personal life, you are in the right place. Let's get started. And hey, don't forget to follow the channel, share it with friends, and give us a 5-star rating to help more people develop their emotional intelligence. Thank you for listening, and don't keep this journey to yourself. Welcome to another episode of the Power of Emotional Intelligence. In today's journey, we are exploring self-awareness, the foundation pillar of emotional intelligence. Have you ever reacted in the heat of the moment, only to wish you'd pause first? Or wondered how to transform nervous energy into a driving force? Self-awareness holds the key. In this episode, you'll discover practical ways to recognize emotions before they take control. Explore the science behind why self-awareness is vital, and learn techniques to stay grounded even during intense moments. We'll talk about real-world examples, like turning nerves into focused energy, and how to use self-awareness to unlock what's known as the flow state, that peak moment of focus and performance. Stay tuned with Maya and Leo, and by the end, you will have the tools you can start using today to boost your emotional resilience, make clearer decisions, and enjoy a deeper understanding of yourself. Ready to tune into your inner landscape? Let's get started.
How often do you truly understand your emotions?
Before they influence your actions.
Yeah, like before they kind of take over and make you do or say something you regret later.
We all have those moments, don't we, where we react without thinking, just letting our feelings take the wheel.
Totally.
But what if
I know I do.
we could hit the pause button? You know what I mean? Understand what's driving those reactions and choose a different path.
Okay. Yeah, that would be...
That's where self-awareness comes in. The cornerstone of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, self-awareness. It's like having that internal observer.
Exactly.
You can say, hey, hold on a sec.
Right.
You're feeling anxious right now. Let's not let that hijack this conversation.
That's the power of self-awareness. It gives you that space to choose how you respond, instead of just being ruled by those knee-jerk reactions.
And that space can make all the difference.
In every aspect of your life.
So can you give us a concrete example of how this actually plays out in a real-world situation?
Absolutely. Let's say you're giving a presentation at work, and you notice your heart's racing.
Oh, yeah.
Palms are sweating.
Classic signs of nervousness.
Exactly. Those are classic signs of nervousness. But if you're self-aware, you can recognize those physical sensations as a natural response to the situation.
Right.
And actually use them to your advantage.
Oh, that's interesting. How do you use those nerves to your advantage?
Well, instead of letting those nerves paralyze you, you can actually reframe them as excitement.
Oh.
You can tell yourself,
I like that.
this adrenaline is giving me energy. It means I care about this presentation.
It's like shifting your perspective from fear to excitement.
Exactly. It's about harnessing that energy and using it to fuel your performance.
But how does this all tie back to the larger concept of emotional intelligence? You know?
We hear that term a lot.
EQ. Yeah.
What does it really mean?
Right.
Well, self-awareness is the bedrock of EQ.
Okay.
Because it allows you to manage your emotions effectively, rather than being controlled by them.
So it's not just about feeling good.
It's about using those feelings as information to guide your actions and your interactions.
That's a great point.
And you know, there's fascinating research that backs this up. Studies have shown that people with high EQ tend to be more successful in their careers, have stronger relationships, report higher levels of overall well-being.
Oh, wow.
It's really powerful stuff.
So where does this ability to be self-aware come from? Are we born with it, or can we develop it over time?
That's a great question. And while some individuals might have a natural predisposition towards self-awareness,
Okay.
research suggests it's a skill that can be cultivated through practice and intention.
So it's not like you're either self-aware or you're not.
Exactly.
It's something you can actively work on.
Think of it like a muscle that you can strengthen over time.
Oh, I like that.
And one of the best ways to start building that muscle is to simply pay attention to your inner world.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, there are many techniques, but one simple starting point is to ask yourself throughout the day, what am I feeling right now? Just notice the physical sensations in your body,
Okay.
the thoughts running through your mind, and try to label those emotions.
So instead of just going through the motions,
Yes.
we're taking those mindful pauses to check in with ourselves.
Exactly. And the more you practice this, the
Yeah.
more those emotions become recognizable. It's like learning a new language. At first, it might feel foreign and unfamiliar, but with consistent effort, you
Yeah.
start to understand the nuances and the subtleties.
Okay, so that makes sense for kind of your average everyday emotions. But what about those times when our emotions feel really intense?
Right.
Almost overwhelming. Is it even possible to be self-aware in those moments?
It's definitely more challenging,
I bet.
but it's precisely when self-awareness is most crucial.
Okay.
You see, when you're in the grip of a strong emotion,
Yeah.
it's like your brain is being hijacked.
Hijacked. What do you mean by that?
Well, to understand that, we need to delve into the neuroscience of emotions.
Okay.
Our brains are wired to respond to threats and rewards.
Right.
And when we experience strong emotions,
Yeah.
a region called the amygdala takes over.
The amygdala.
It's like an alarm system that triggers a fight or flight response.
So in those moments of intense emotion,
Right.
our brains are prioritizing survival over rational thinking.
Exactly. And this is where self-awareness can make a huge difference.
Okay.
If we can recognize that our amygdala is firing, we can take steps to calm our nervous system and regain control of our responses.
So instead of reacting impulsively,
Yeah,
we're creating that space to choose a more thoughtful course of action.
precisely. And that space is what allows us to make decisions that align with our values and goals, rather than being driven by our fears or anxieties.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how self-awareness is really the key to unlocking our full potential.
It really is.
But to bring it back to a more practical level, are there any specific techniques that can help us regain self-awareness in those emotionally charged moments?
Absolutely. One of the simplest and most effective techniques is mindful breathing.
Okay.
When you feel overwhelmed, just take a few deep, slow breaths, focusing on the sensation of your breath entering and leaving your body.
So it's about shifting our attention from the swirling thoughts and feelings to something more grounded,
Yes.
more physical.
Exactly. And, even just a few minutes of mindful breathing can help calm your nervous system
Wow.
and bring you back to a more centered state.
This is all so fascinating. I'm already starting to rethink my own approach to self-improvement. It's not just about learning a new skill or hitting the gym.
Right.
It's about understanding the engine that drives everything else.
Absolutely. And that understanding starts with the brain. We can't talk about self-awareness without delving a little deeper into the fascinating world of neuroscience.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I've always been curious about the science behind our feelings. What's actually going on up there when we experience strong emotions?
Well, one key player is the prefrontal cortex. Think of it as the CEO of your brain, the executive center where your working memory,
Right.
decision-making, and emotional regulation all come together.
So it's like the command center where logic and feelings intersect.
Precisely. And here's where it gets fascinating. When we experience intense emotions,
Okay.
like anxiety or anger, it's almost as if the prefrontal cortex gets hijacked,
Hijacked.
like someone's taking over the controls.
Whoa.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
The emotional centers of our brain,
Yeah.
particularly the amygdala,
Right.
can send such strong signals that they disrupt the prefrontal cortex's ability to function optimally.
So that explains why when we're upset, we sometimes say we can't think straight.
Exactly.
Our brains are literally being flooded with emotion.
The prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for working memory, gets overwhelmed, and our rational thinking takes a backseat. This is what we often call neural hijacking.
Wow. I've never thought about it that way. So it's not just a saying.
It's a real phenomenon.
And there's a real biological basis for that feeling of being overwhelmed by emotion.
There absolutely is. And to really understand the power of this connection between the emotional brain and the thinking brain,
Yeah.
there's a fascinating case study you might find interesting. It's the story of a man named Elliot.
Okay, I'm all ears. Who's Elliot and why is his brain so special?
Elliot was a patient who underwent surgery to remove a brain tumor.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, the surgery also ended up severing the connection between his emotional brain,
Okay.
specifically the amygdala and his neocortex, the part of the brain responsible for higher level thinking.
Oh, that sounds serious. What happened to him after the surgery?
Well, intellectually, Elliot seemed fine.
Yeah.
His IQ was intact, his memory was fine, he could hold conversations,
Wow.
but there was a profound change in his decision-making.
In what way?
Elliot lost the ability to assign values to his decisions.
Oh, wow.
He could logically analyze all the options,
All right.
but he couldn't connect to his feelings about them.
Huh.
So even simple choices,
Like what?
like what to eat for lunch,
Really?
became agonizing
That's incredible.
because he couldn't feel which option was better or worse.
So even though he could think clearly, without that emotional connection, he couldn't decide what was important to him.
Exactly. He became almost like a robot, processing information, but lacking the emotional compass to guide his choices.
That's both fascinating and a little bit frightening.
Yeah,
It really highlights how interconnected our thoughts and feelings are.
absolutely. Elliot's story is a powerful illustration of why self-awareness is so crucial.
Yeah.
If we're cut off from our emotions,
Right.
we lose a vital part of what makes us human, what allows us to make meaningful decisions
Yeah.
and navigate the complexities of life.
It's almost like our emotions provide the color and texture to the tapestry of our lives.
I love that.
Without them, everything just feels flat and meaningless.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And when we develop self-awareness, we're essentially tuning into those colors and textures, allowing them to inform our choices and actions.
This is all starting to come together for me. But you mentioned that self-awareness also has benefits beyond just making better decisions.
Right.
How does it actually improve our lives?
Well, for one, it helps you manage your emotions more effectively.
Okay.
People with strong self-awareness are less likely to get stuck in negative thought patterns or ruminate on setbacks. They're able to recognize those feelings,
Right.
acknowledge them,
Yeah.
and then move on more quickly.
So they're less likely to get bogged down by bad moods or anxiety.
Exactly. And this has a ripple effect. There's interesting research on optimism and how it relates to success.
Oh, interesting.
For example, a study at the University of Pennsylvania found that freshman students with higher optimism scores
Okay.
actually performed better academically
Wow.
than those with higher SAT scores.
Wait, so a positive outlook actually trumped raw intelligence.
It seems so.
That's fascinating.
And I think this speaks to the power of self-awareness. If you're able to manage your reactions to challenges to bounce back from setbacks,
Right.
you're more likely to persevere and ultimately succeed.
That's encouraging.
So it's not just about being cheerful all the time.
Right.
It's about understanding how your emotional state affects your performance
Okay.
and then using that knowledge to your advantage.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And there's another fascinating benefit of self-awareness that I think you'll find intriguing.
Okay.
What's that?
It can help you achieve what's called a flow state.
Flow state. What's that?
Flow state is that feeling of complete absorption in an activity
Oh, okay.
where you lose track of time
Right.
and become fully immersed in the moment.
I think I know what you mean.
It's that feeling of being in the zone.
Yeah, like when I'm writing or working on a creative project,
Exactly.
time just seems to disappear and I'm totally focused.
And research suggests that self-awareness is a key ingredient in achieving and maintaining this flow state.
Oh, wow. So how does that work? How does self-awareness help us get into that flow state?
Well, when you're self-aware, you're more attuned to your internal state. Your energy levels, your focus, you're able to recognize when you're getting distracted, when you need a break, when you need to push yourself a little harder. And this allows you to adjust your approach and optimize your performance.
It's almost like self-awareness gives you the owner's manual to your own mind,
I love that analogy.
so you can fine-tune it for peak performance.
And here's the amazing part. Flow state isn't just about feeling good.
Real?
It's actually linked to mastery in any field. Athletes, artists, musicians, entrepreneurs. They all describe this feeling of flow as essential to their success.
So it's not just a coincidence.
No.
There's a real connection between self-awareness, flow state, and achieving peak performance.
There absolutely is, and it's something we can all cultivate.
This is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Sure.
For someone listening to this, maybe feeling a little overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
where's a good starting point for actually developing self-awareness?
That's a great question. And sometimes the simplest approaches are the most effective.
Okay.
Remember Dr. Brazelton's test with the baby and the blocks?
I don't think so. Refresh my memory.
It was a simple test of a baby's outlook on life. Dr. Brazelton would give a baby 2 blocks
Okay.
and then show them how to put the blocks together.
Oh, what happened?
Well, the optimistic babies,
Yeah.
the ones with confidence in their own abilities,
Okay.
would explore the blocks, play with them, even drop them off the table to see if someone would pick them up. They were engaged and curious.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
So even in infancy, there are signs of self-awareness,
Yes.
of that connection to one's own feelings and actions.
Exactly. And while we may not all be playing with blocks anymore,
Right.
that same spirit of exploration, of curiosity about our inner world,
Okay.
that's a great starting point for developing self-awareness.
So instead of trying to force ourselves into some rigid self-improvement mold,
Yeah.
we can approach self-awareness with a sense of playfulness.
I like that. Of exploration.
Sure. Hey, what's going on in here?
Really?
Let's find out.
I love that because ultimately, self-awareness is a journey, not a destination. It's about cultivating that ongoing curiosity about yourself, your emotions, your motivations.
It's a lifelong process of self-discovery.
So instead of beating ourselves up for our mistakes or emotional slip-ups,
Right.
we can view them as opportunities for learning and growth.
Absolutely. Every experience, every emotion offers a chance to understand yourself a little bit better.
That's a great perspective shift. And there are specific techniques that can help you delve deeper into those experiences.
Absolutely.
One powerful approach is journaling.
Ah, journaling. Classic, but effective.
It does sound a bit old school.
Maybe.
How does that actually help with self-awareness?
It's simpler than you might think,
Yeah.
but incredibly effective. Take some time each day to write down your thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
Don't censor yourself. Just let it flow.
So it's not about writing a perfect diary entry.
No, not at all. It's more about getting those thoughts and feelings out of your head and onto paper.
Exactly. And as you do this regularly,
Yeah.
you might start to notice patterns in your thinking,
Interesting.
triggers for certain emotions or recurring themes in your life.
Huh.
It's like creating a map of your inner landscape.
I like that analogy.
It can be really revealing.
It's like you're becoming an archaeologist of your own emotions.
Exactly.
Uncovering the hidden layers and connections.
And as you become more familiar with your own internal terrain,
Yeah.
you'll be better equipped to navigate those challenging moments.
Right.
And make choices that align with your values and goals.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense. But before we move on,
Sure.
I'm curious to hear more about this self-science curriculum you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us more about how they teach emotional intelligence to children?
It's truly an innovative program. At the Nueva School, they've integrated emotional intelligence into their core curriculum,
Wow.
teaching kids these essential skills from a young age.
That's remarkable. What do? Have kids sit in a circle and talk about their feelings?
It's actually quite structured and age-appropriate. For
Okay.
example, with younger children, they might use a scale of 1 to 10
Okay.
to help them identify and communicate their emotions.
So instead of a child throwing a tantrum because they're frustrated,
Right.
they might say, I'm feeling an 8 right now because...
It gives them a language to express their inner world,
I can see how that would be helpful.
which is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And, research shows that this kind of emotional coaching from parents and educators early on
Okay.
has significant long-term benefits for children.
Makes sense. I'm picturing parents asking, are you feeling a 3 or a 7 angry right now?
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Precisely. It helps kids identify and label their emotions and then find healthy ways to manage them.
Yeah.
Instead of reacting impulsively,
Right.
they learn to pause, reflect,
Yeah.
and choose a more constructive response.
That's a valuable skill that can benefit them throughout their lives.
Absolutely. And it all starts with that foundation of self-awareness,
Right.
that ability to tune into their own inner experience
Yeah.
and understand how their emotions impact their actions and interactions.
This is all so inspiring. I'm already feeling motivated to incorporate some of these techniques into my own life.
That's great to hear.
But before we wrap up this part of our exploration,
Sure.
I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Okay.
How can you start paying attention to your own emotions in a more conscious and intentional way?
That's a great question for all of us to consider.
We'll be back in part 2 to delve even deeper into this essential pillar of emotional intelligence.